The quality of the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger games exists on quite the spectrum. The SNES game was good, the Genesis game was not, and the Game Gear game was an unexpected treat. So you'd think that the Game Boy version, the version on the console that won the handheld race, would be good, right?
Well, I'm afraid not.
Hey Ranger fans, welcome back. It's me, Spammer D. So, in an unexpected turn of events, Power Rangers on the Game Boy might actually be the worst of the bunch. Oh, thus far anyway.
Following in the footsteps of its SNES counterpart, Power Rangers on the Game Boy is also an action platformer. A very, very annoying one at that. Though for any of you familiar with the original Game Boy, I should probably first address what you're seeing on the screen. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. That is indeed color. On an OG black and white, black and lime green Game Boy game.
Power Rangers on Game Boy is one of the select few games to receive enhancements through the power of the Super Game Boy, which is arguably the best way to play this one.
Though I'm not really too sure if it does more harm than good, as it just highlights, both figuratively and kind of literally, all of the problems with the visuals. Like, damn, just look at the Rangers. They are ripped. They are jacked. They are all exactly the same. And look, recolored Ranger sprites are nothing new for this series, but they usually, at the very least, give the Pink Ranger her skirt, or the Green Ranger his shield. Oh wait, my bad, there is no Green Ranger in this one. What is that, 2 for 2 Nintendo? Though this version is missing even more than that, because there isn't even a story in this one. Though yeah, I'm sure it would have been exactly the same as all the other games. Come on, you know the drill. Rita wants to conquer Earth, makes a bunch of monsters, and teens with attitude stop them using multicolored superpowers. But still, just to completely leave the story out is questionable at best. Though, maybe that was on purpose. After all, you don't have to make the levels revolve around a story if there is no story. That's right, this is another one of those license-based games where they basically just ignored the license outside of a few boss fights and just made a bunch of more gamey stages to fight through. And while a city and maybe this is a park, I don't know. Well, they make sense. I don't really remember fights being in abandoned buildings full of spikes, or caves, or evil bases. Though they are what give this game its flavor, cause the Rangers sure don't. All 5 Rangers play exactly the same, for the most part. Standard punch, duck punch, and jump kick. They do all have their weapons, but aside from the Pink Ranger, all they really do is just give you more reach. Which is nice, but they also slowly drain away your health, which is not so nice. Also, activate your weapons by pressing select. I beat the game twice before I actually realized that. And of course, when the weapons aren't swinging, there's really no way to tell which Ranger I am. I mean, can you even tell which Ranger I'm playing now? Hey, good guess. Yes, I am indeed playing the fan favorite, the Gray Ranger. Though adding color doesn't really add much to the Rangers, or at least not as much as it does to the stages, in both very cool and very odd ways. So yeah, I don't really know how the limitations of the Super Game Boy works, but each stage takes on the color of the Ranger you chose instead of having its own unique distinct look, meaning it changes with your character. Being the Black Ranger, for example, makes the spike-filled factory look dark and ominous. Though obviously a pink motif doesn't have quite the same effect. Side note though, the enemy base looks pretty sick in red. But getting past all the oddities that come with splashing color into a black and white game, let's really focus on what stays consistent: the action. As stated before, the Rangers' repertoire isn't exactly stacked. But then again, it doesn't really need to be for such simple gameplay. You basically move forward as enemies approach you, and you try to give them a good whack before they can do the same to you. It's actually pretty similar to the Power Rangers rivals of the time. Of course, I'm talking about the Ninja Turtles, Fall of the Foot Clan on Game Boy. Where the game differs, however, is most certainly the platforming. Once you get past the second stage, of 5, platforming is implemented greatly, and this is where the problems really begin to show up. For starters, and the most minor thing, is that it can be tough to know what is or isn't a platform, as well as what can or can't hurt you. Like here, we see what spikes look like in this game. You touch them, you take damage. Sure, standard affair. But what the hell is hitting me in this stage? Like, no, seriously, is it these face things? I really can't tell. Someone help me out here. Not helped by the fact that the Rangers are just too ripped. So much, in fact, that their hitboxes make getting through some of these obstacles way, way harder than they have any right to be. Like, see? How did that hit me? Short hops do not help here. Why can't I just freaking teleport? Though the real issue here is simply the sheer cheapness of the game. That third level, the spiky warehouse, again is the poster child for this. In order to proceed, you have to drop down. A lot. But unless you've played it before, there is no way to know where the spikes are going to be. And there's no pattern to it. Though, once you do know, the game becomes a breeze, as every enemy and all of their attacks are basically the same every time. So you'll figure it out eventually. Plus, each stage gives you more health than the previous stage, making it even easier as you go. Toss in the fact that the game is rocking infinite continues, as well as a password system, and it basically balances everything out. Pro tip: because your Ranger crouch punches and not crouch kicks, you can't hit these boulders coming at you in the caves, and your fat ass is way too big to jump over them. So what you do is you jump as high as you can at the end of each path to trigger the boulders above, and then you just wait for them to reach you and you jump kick them. There you go. Saved you some major headaches. Of course, though, we couldn't call this a Power Rangers game without the giant monster fights as the Megazord. And they are easily the highlights of this game. Because, for starters, the boss fight music is always the Mighty Morphin theme song, which is a solid 8-bit rendition. Has a lot of energy and I just like it. It's just a pity that none of the other tracks in the game even come close to touching it. They're all completely forgettable. As for the boss fights themselves, they are yet another group of iconic monsters from the show, utilizing simple patterns that evolve once you get their health halfway down. I like this because it feels much more skill-based than the rest of the game. Plus, if you time your hits just right, you can score bonus hits. I always love that in games. Though of course your power move does a lot of damage, and you can pretty much cheese them super fast with it. But I mean, come on, where's the fun in that? Also, fun fact, this is the only Power Rangers game that lets you fight Rita. Sure, it's not canon at all, but it's cool. And once you've taken her down, Zordon congratulates you by telling you that beating it on normal isn't good enough. You pleb.
Yeah, I think I'm done.
Yeah, simply put, the game isn't really worth a second playthrough on a harder difficulty. Though I did do it anyway. And no! The proper ending really isn't that different. Power Rangers on Game Boy, while not particularly a bad game, certainly isn't a good one either. Of the 5 Mighty Morphin Power Ranger games, it is easily the most middle of the road. But it kinda heavily leans towards the, side. While the theme song does rock and the boss fights are pretty solid, the fact is that most of the game is just filled to the brim with too many cheap and frustrating aspects, like leaps of faith and crappy hitboxes, that are really only made tolerable thanks to infinite continues and lots of health. Not the best reasons. And even ignoring the time period the game was made in, the visuals are subpar at best and only really add to the frustration, even with the Super Game Boy's enhancements and the big screen. Unless you are really nostalgic for this game or these type of games, you're really better off just grabbing the SNES or Game Gear versions.